Subscribe to English Vocabulary official channel for more interesting stories and for learning English.
Chapter 1. The Silent Stranger. In a small village nestled between rolling hills, there was a young woman named Amara who had always felt like an outsider in her own world. Though she lived in a community where everyone spoke their native language, she often found herself disconnected. Words to her were not bridges to understanding, but walls cold and unyielding. Amara's family had migrated to the village when she was just a child, bringing with them the language of their homeland. Her parents spoke their native tongue at home, and she grew up learning it as her primary language. But the village, modern and diverse, was a place where English was spoken almost everywhere, from schools to markets to the local radio station. To the others, English seemed to roll off their tongues effortlessly, while Amara struggled. She could barely understand the accents and phrases, let alone form a coherent sentence. The local school had a foreign language curriculum, and at the age of 15, Amara was enrolled in the English classes. However, each day in the classroom felt like a battle. The teacher, Mrs. Harper, was kind but strict, and the language seemed like a foreign riddle that Amara just couldn't decipher. One afternoon, as Amara sat in her classroom, staring at the chalkboard full of English words, a voice interrupted her reverie. "Amara, would you like to read the next passage?" Mrs. Harper's voice was calm, but there was a hint of challenge in it. Amara's heart sank. She had been daydreaming again, lost in the complexity of English grammar. The class had been reading a passage from The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and the words seemed like a maze of confusing symbols. I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper, I don't know how to." She trailed off, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. The teacher smiled softly. "It's okay. English is a tricky language, but you can do it. Just take it one word at a time." But Amara couldn't shake the feeling that English was a beautiful, unattainable stranger, one who remained just out of reach. It was a language of poetry, of Shakespeare, of songs, yet it felt like a prison for her. Each word she tried to speak seemed to betray her. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Amara packed her books, determined to practice more at home. But it wasn't until she walked into her parents' house that she truly realized how much she longed to understand English, to break free from the silence that bound her. Chapter 2. The Discovery. That evening, as Amara sat in her room staring at a dictionary, something unexpected happened. Her father entered, holding a thick book in his hands. It was an old novel, its pages yellowed with age. "Amara," he said, placing the book gently on her desk. "This was mine when I was young. It's a collection of English poems. I want you to read it." Amara glanced at the cover and felt an odd mixture of excitement and fear. She had always been fascinated by the beauty of poetry, but English poetry? That was a different world entirely. Yet something in her father's voice told her she needed to try. The book was titled The Beauty of Words, a collection of English poetry. The first poem she opened to was I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. She stared at the words, unfamiliar yet intriguing. The rhythm, the flow, it was like music, not just a language. She read the lines over and over. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. There was something magical about the way the words painted images in her mind. She could almost see the daffodils, feel the breeze, The language, despite its complexity, was like a painting coming to life. The next day, Amara arrived early to school. She wasn't there to study grammar or vocabulary. Instead, she spent the hour before class reading English poetry. Her new obsession became the beauty of words, how each line held a world within it, a hidden meaning just waiting to be uncovered. Mrs. Harper, noticing her newfound interest, approached her during lunch. "Amara, I see you've been studying poetry. I think you're starting to understand something important about English," she said. "English is more than just a language. It's an art form, a way of expressing the beauty of the world. If you want to master it, you need to connect with it on a deeper level. Don't just focus on memorizing words. Let the words move you." Those words stuck with Amara. She decided to dive deeper into the world of English literature. She started reading novels, short stories, and, most importantly, more poems. With each piece, she felt the language becoming less of a foreign entity and more like an old friend, one who whispered to her in a voice she was beginning to understand.